Welcome to this blab. I'm talking to the Deputy Police and Crime Commissioner for Surrey, Jeff Harris. Hello, Jeff. How are you doing?
Hello, Paul. Good afternoon to everybody.
Excellent. Now, we decided that we were going to do this live broadcast about cybercrime, and the fact that we're using state-of-the-art technology to do this live broadcast, I think it's quite an appropriate subject, wouldn't you say?
I think so. And it's the easiest way to get the message across to many, many people who can then share it.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, we want to talk about cybercrime, and this is on the back of the press release that you guys put, or your office put out recently, where the Office of the Police and Crime Commissioner for Surrey will be taking part in a new cybercrime survey and help us fight back. And the survey is called Cyber Safe Surrey Network. Can you just tell us a little bit about that, Jeff, please?
Yeah, of course. Well, I'll give you a little bit of background first of all. About 2 years ago, we started a partnership in Surrey, which was a multi-agency partnership, which included everybody from the County Council, Age UK, the youth services in Surrey, various organisations, including Microsoft UK at a very senior level, because we have somebody who lives in Surrey. So we had the background in terms of what we were trying to do, which is prevent cybercrime, not just to young people, but to the elderly, to businesses. So the whole picture of cybercrime.
Right.
We then started, or my staff started, a website called cybersafesurrey.org. And one of the things that we were acutely aware of is, unfortunately, even on a national picture, nobody's actually got a true picture of what does internet safety, what does cybercrime, cyber-enabled crime actually look like, hence the survey. So this gives us the opportunity, not just across Surrey, but we're actually using people across the southeast. So 5 counties involved, which will populate a survey, which will give us the most up-to-date, accurate view of what is happening on internet abuse and use by all ages. We've already got some work going on in schools, which I think you know about, but this will give us the 18 and above view on internet safety and cybercrime.
Right. Okay. Now, does this? So when we say cybercrime, do you mean right across the spectrum of cybercrime? So from the trolls out there that and people who are harassing people on Twitter and that type of thing, through to the serious crime, whereby people are taking over people's computers and stealing their credit card details and that type of thing. I mean, what is the spectrum?
It is as broad as that, as far as the survey is concerned, because what we find is wherever we look, we get different pictures in different parts of the country, different, we know we've got things like Cyber Streetwise, which is the government help, but actually not many people use those. In fact, we know that Get Safe Online, Cyber Streetwise are only used by a maximum of about 4% of people who use the internet, and that's about 45 million people in total. Right. So we know that about 90%, well, we know 99% of our young people under the age of 18 use it on a regular basis. And we know in Surrey we've got twice the national average of over 65-year-olds who use it, surprisingly enough. So they've all got their vulnerabilities. So what we're trying to do is get the accurate picture. So it'll be the whole spectrum, and then we'll try and sort out where's the best place to put all our effort to prevent it. Because we're told that 80% of victimization of whatever sort is preventable.
Right. Now, again, going back to the serious crime, so the fraud, that type of stuff that's going on the internet. I mean, in my capacity as a borough councillor, representing Mitchett and Deepcut here in Surrey Heath, I often hear from residents who have been victims of crime or sort of sussed out as it was happening what was going on, and managed to sort of avoid it. In fact, I remember about 2 years ago, I had an elderly resident who had been literally fleeced, where they'd rang her up. I think they said they were calling from Microsoft or someone like that. And in fact, no, it wasn't. They were saying they were calling from Sky because that was her ISP. And they took all her credit card, they fleeced her credit cards, they got into her bank accounts. And the woman's never been the same since. No. I mean, it really did affect her because she was a widower living alone, absolutely terrified. And the effect that this has on residents is quite significant. Now, I assume once you've got the findings of this survey, you can then deploy resources appropriately. But how do you prevent something like that? Because it sounds to me as though it's more about education than anything else.
Absolutely. And the sort of cases that you mentioned there, Paul, is that people will be aware that there are a multitude of scams. These people who are perpetrating the scams, there is no doubt about it. My phrase for them, as you're probably aware, is beneath contempt predators.
Yeah.
Because they will prey on the most vulnerable, that is the youngest people and the elderly in our county and beyond. So the telephone scams that you just mentioned, there are a number of those. And if I could just go through a couple of those, if that's all right. If you're
absolutely. Please do. Yeah, we've got the time.
The usual one, and I had it literally the other day, is that the phone goes and it is somebody asking for my wife's name or my name, but they mispronounce it because they're reading it. And basically, they're from a different country anyway. So they're either coming from the Indian subcontinent or the Chinese subcontinent, the Far East, or South America. And they feed it through a UK landline. And we know all about where the landline is, but it will come. If you do a 1471, you get a landline. But the bottom line is, because they start off by saying, "Can I speak to Mr. Jeffrey Harris?" Most people, and especially the age group we're talking about, they're incredibly vulnerable because they're very trusting of the authorities. So if somebody rang up and said they're from the local council, a local councillor, or the police, or their bank, or Microsoft, or Apple, or whatever, they would believe them straight away. And then these people get engaged, and you've had it. You've got a problem with your computer. I can repair it, and it will only cost you so-and-so, because if you don't, this is going to happen.
Yeah.
So they prey on the vulnerability in terms of people's trust of authority. In some cases, gullibility, let's face it, because we can all fall for a line sometimes. And the older we are, the more trusting we are. But they'll also, there's somebody who seems to know what they're talking about, who can help me. And human nature is that we do like to help. We like to be helped. So what happens is they will lead the person into giving them their log-on details, or they'll log on and give them control. They're not fixing it. What they're doing is, in most cases, they're downloading some malware, which is bad software in plain English. But they're also getting the credit card details to pay for it. And it's usually about £100, £150. But they'll then use those credit cards elsewhere, credit card details there. But they've got control of the computer. So what you get is some of the I'll call it the bad software that's downloaded, and there's all sorts of names for it. But what it can do is actually record your keystrokes. So if it works out you're doing online banking, it'll work out your password and your PIN numbers, and then feed those back at some time. So the secret of any phone call that you get, first of all, and it goes against the grain for people who are polite, is not to give your name, not to give your number, just say who's calling. Yeah. And then if you don't recognize a person, just put the phone down.
Absolutely. And there's also phishing scams that come via email. So it's not just over the phone. Yeah. I mean, the thing is that these scams are getting more and more sophisticated. In fact, I had one literally this morning where somebody sent me an email to say, there's an invoice. We noticed from our accounts that there's an invoice outstanding that we want to pay you. Yep. So it's as if the invoice, I'd sent them an invoice and they hadn't paid it. And a lot of greedy business people like me will think, I wonder what that is, and click the link. I knew better, but there are people out there that are going to end up with all sorts of, like you say, malware that could record keystrokes and that type of thing. Yeah.
Certainly, small businesses will fall foul of that one because we know that the majority of small businesses, the work we've done already, we know the majority of small businesses either don't employ somebody or don't have somebody to give them the education that they need or keep their systems up to date. So the majority don't have that protection. But you're quite right. The other one, and there are a multitude of these, Paul, and you may have had the HMRC one.
Yes.
And it looks like it's come from the income tax people, and it says, Mr. Deach, you are due an income tax return of, and it's usually a figure that you think, that's worth having, £179 or something like that. And I've had it recently, 179 quid, and you think, that's worth having. Mm-hmm. So it's not millions of pounds. So you think and most people say, and they click on it, and as you say, they download something. But the other thing that happens with small businesses, of course, is that, and it happens to public authorities because it happened to a borough council not a million miles from you, is that they work out what their invoice limitations are. So they'll work out that, generally speaking, if you send them an invoice under their invoice limitation, the rule of thumb is it's processed whatever. Yeah. So they work out to the penny what that is. So they will send a stream of these through till somebody eventually says, hang on a minute, how come we're paying 20, 30, 40, 50 invoices for £499.99? Right. So that happens to borough councils. It does happen to police forces. These people are predatory beneath contempt to all of us.
And they're not just targeting individuals, they're targeting businesses, every angle. In fact, one of the councillors for Surrey Heath Borough Council put a warning on one of the local Facebook groups a couple of days ago because it's been in the news recently about the telephone preference service.
Yep.
And these criminals are in touch with what is going on in the news. And, they're preying on people using these sound bites in the news because somebody's heard of it recently. They think, oh, right, must be true then, kind of thing.
Yeah.
And it was a scam on the telephone preference service. And he put a warning out. And apparently it was the second or third call he'd received about that particular scam.
Yeah, and it's interesting. You mentioned that the telephone preference service is a good one for UK landlines.
Right.
Yeah. What these criminals are doing, because they're coming from international, the telephone preference service doesn't pick them up. So what happens is, because of the way they're set up, so it doesn't pick them up. They're not under any obligation to comply. The other thing that happens, and the scam I think you're talking about there, is that somebody will be told that actually we can stop all these bad calls coming to you. Because although the telephone preference service does UK landlines, it can't do anything about international calls. But we can. If you pay us £100, we'll put up some software on your phone line and it will stop all these international calls coming. The second thing that's worth bearing in mind, and again for your listeners, and particularly if they've got vulnerable parents, grandparents, whatever, is that the sophistication of these scams is that if you get a phone call at, say, 5:30 in the evening, you pick up the phone, then they know that at 5:30, the odds are somebody will pick up the phone. It's not going to go to an answer phone and not be answered. So what they'll do is that you'll find over a period of time, 5:30 every evening, your phone rings and it'll be somebody different because they're using the same sort of computer network. So if you get it, the answer is, I say, don't say whatever your number is. Don't say your name. If they say, is that so-and-so, say who's calling, and then put the phone down. If it is genuine, they will work out, there'll be another way of calling you. And if it's friends and family, that you know them anyway. You can get software. We've been doing some work with the trading standards down in Mole Valley to try and work out and prevent these, not just the phone calls, but also cold callers coming at the door as well. So there's a lot of work going on in the background to prevent this happening. But these people are sophisticated, they're very clever, they're very professional, and they are willing to spend a lot of time. And they can send, you mentioned scam emails, they can send up to 1 million scam emails at the press of a button, because all they do is just program just to test every single version of an email address they can find.
Yeah, they did. It's called a brute force attack. And
that's it, yeah. And then just one person needs to answer it, and that's it, they're in.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, so we've talked about some of the scams, phishing scams, that type of thing. We've also talked a little bit about harassment and that type of crime. Are there any other types of cybercrime that we haven't discussed? I mean, straight away, I'm thinking, the type of bullying that goes on and that we hear about so much in the news, particularly with young people.
Yep, it's a
I've
growing
lost you there
problem.
for a second,
All right.
Jeff.
Are we
I've got you back. I've got you back.
Yeah.
Got you back. So, did you hear my question?
Yeah, it's a particularly worrying in terms of young people, but it's happening to older people as well. Right. You mentioned trolling, but certainly bullying. Young people particularly, what's happening is the social media is a fantastic thing. But what happens is, and I'll give you a classic example. Some of your listeners may have, or your team may have heard about sexting, which is sending any form of sexual picture to somebody under the age of 16 or receiving it under the age of 16. Now, the whole thing there is what you're finding is that a lot of young people, until the law changed last year, perceive that as just normal behaviour. But what happens then is they are groomed. And that's the word. It's the same as street grooming or outside the school gates. They are groomed online to send in more and more explicit photographs over to an unknown person, because that's what it is, or somebody purports to be a friend, to come to an extent where they say, actually, enough's enough, I'm not going to send you anymore. And then they're blackmailed. And they're blackmailed either to doing something, or sending some money, or giving out information about somebody else, or worst case scenario, actually going much further and meeting the person, where we get into the full abuse. So that is happening. We're also getting the bullying side, is where people are bullied into doing it by threat of being outed, if that's the right word, in terms of, and this happens at schools and colleges. We know it's happening. We've got a lot of work going on in schools around Surrey. We know it's happening. We know our special needs children are being bullied online far more than they were before, because they're more susceptible and trusting to make friendships with people who they don't know. And the advice is quite simple there. If you've got a young person listening or watching who's got any worries at all, must speak to, if it's a school or college, there will be somebody at school or college who's a safeguarding teacher, or any teacher, a youth worker, police officer. They've got to speak to somebody in authority who will point them the right direction to get help. But it is a case of, it's a growing problem, not just the bullying, but the total taking advantage of vulnerable young people.
Yeah, and as a parent, it's my worst nightmare, if the truth be told. And it's something that I think we don't need any survey to tell us what we need to do there. And it is, again, it's about education, isn't it?
We know straight away. I can tell you, 70% of parents in Surrey do not know what their children are doing online. The other 30% believe they do, but you and I know. But if you go to, and most people know this, so it's not a trade secret. If you go to Microsoft, if you go to incognito, you go onto Google Chrome, go into incognito. You and I both know what you can do with certain perfectly legitimate, freely accessible software to cover your tracks. Yeah. So we've got parents who think they know what's going on, but don't. But the overwhelming majority don't. And part of it is actually, it's a bit like the old-fashioned sex education, to be quite honest. How do you broach it with your children? Well, with IT safety, it's a lot younger than sex education, because we know we've got 8-year-olds who'll be online, who'll be on Facebook, even though we know they sign a terms of and conditions, and I agree to terms and conditions. We've all done it. We scroll down 50 pages of terms and conditions and just put I agree, because you can't be bothered
to read it all. Yeah.
And so young people do it. They do lie about their ages. We know that. Yeah, let's face it. We
did it ourselves, didn't we? We've all done it.
Some of us have. Some of us have to do it now, of course, in a different context. But the serious side of this is parents, grandparents, uncles, aunts, siblings, i.e. brothers and sisters, sit down and have that conversation. Don't be afraid to ask difficult questions, get difficult answers, because we know we're hearing from parents who are having these conversations and finding out their children are being bullied, they're being groomed, they're being abused online, and then they can do something about it as a family, as a team. So it's not a young person on their own. It's actually got mum, dad, auntie, uncle, guardian, care worker, or whoever on their side, and the schools will help.
Yeah, I mean, we all love this fantastic technology. Like what we're doing now, it's incredible what the capabilities are, but also there's a sinister side to it, and we just need to understand the dangers and teach our young people and vulnerable people what those dangers are. Now, so this survey was published, I think, according to this, around about the 17th of November.
Yep.
When will it finish, and when will we discover what the findings are?
Right, it will finish in February, because we want to take it right the way through the Christmas period. Because what we're aware of is, as an example, we know that you've heard of Cyber Monday, this last Monday gone.
Yes.
We know that online frauds will have shot through the roof on Cyber Monday over the Christmas period and into the sales period, or I'll call it the sales period, the post-Christmas period, where people are actually trying to claim back things, where their bills come, the credit card bills, and think, I didn't spend anything on that. Yeah. So we know we go through that period of time. So by February, we will have it completed. But we've already got some interim findings. If I could just share a couple with you.
That'd be great, yeah.
We've got, in the first week or so, we got 6 100,000 people completed the search.
Right.
And the more the merrier.
Yeah.
And I mean it because the more information we've got, the more we're able to, not just in Surrey, but the South East County.
While I'm on here, Dan Adams, who's watching this, Dan, if you could go to the Surrey Police Crime Commissioner website, could you just find the press release and copy in the link into the comments there for us so that we can share that with everybody? That would be great. Excellent. Yeah. Sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, if Dan's going to copy that in, I'll say it so now. But some of the first signs, we know that, for instance, of the first 5,500, so it's a fair-sized survey already. We know that 80% of people believe that online crime are just as serious as physical crimes. Now, what that means is that the authorities, that's not just the police, but not just the education service, the councils, etc., should actually be thinking, if we talk about prevention, if we were talking about preventing burglaries or car theft or 101 different crimes, we put a lot of effort into those. Yeah. In these cases, we're doing a lot more effort into investigating them, but there's not enough, I think, in terms of preventing them.
Right.
So if we look at, for instance, we know that 84% of the people who've completed so far have experienced some form of attempted cybercrime. You mentioned phishing earlier, so that's the most common. So 84% of the people that we've spoken to so far say there've been some form of attempted cybercrime in the last 12 months. Now, interesting, love, when and I don't want to get political about this, but you hear people saying that crime is down. No, crime is not down. Certain elements of crime are down, which is great. But actually, if you look, the numbers are staggering, Paul. Give you an example. In the Guildford, and I've only got the Guildford IP address, I could go on for other ones, but Guildford IP address, in April alone, Microsoft managed to stop 30,000 intrusions. Wow. That's just in 1 month. That's the ISP in 1 month in one IP address. Bear in mind, there are something like 4.5 million IP addresses worldwide, but it's a bit like a post. For people who don't know, it's like a postcode. But so in 1 month, Microsoft has stopped 30,000 getting through to your computer. And if you then start looking at extrapolation of numbers, you said yourself you received one or two. Most of them will go straight to people's junk boxes, which is great. Yeah. Most will sit there. And what they'll find is they'll recognise them straight away. Again, if we talk about vulnerable people, they won't necessarily recognise them as being a scam or something they need to be careful of. So they're more likely to open them. But actually, if you say that there are 45 million people who use the email IT system in this country at the moment, roughly, if you say every single one of those only receives one like you did every 2 weeks, then you're talking about 2 billion attempted crimes, because that's what they are.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
In the definition of attempted crime is something that would be a crime if it hadn't been stopped in the meantime. Yeah. So they are crimes. They're all crimes because they're attempted frauds or computer misuse or whatever the case may be. But that's what we're talking about. So it's enormous. The cost to us, and this has got to be approximate. If you look at government figures, they will talk about 25 to 50 billion. If you take 50 billion pounds as being the approximate cost, that is enough for every single public service in Surrey for about 12 years.
Yeah.
Everything. That is police, that is county council, local councils, health service, all that. In Surrey alone, I'm guesstimating it. It's about £4 billion a year, which is the same as it costs to run the police, the county council, the health service, and all the borough councils put together. That's what we are losing from individuals and companies across Surrey every year. So we can do something about it and save ourselves a lot of money and an awful lot of trauma. Because one of the things that came up, part of my research, was to look at what happens with identity fraud, where somebody comes in, and you mentioned earlier, gets right in and steals you, basically. So they've got everything they need to know about you. Now, all the research says, and there's a lot of research going on in Royal Holloway and Surrey University, all research says that if you are affected by identity fraud, it will take you about 100 days and certain amounts of time during each day to actually manage to get that sorted out. And I'll use the company. There are others. Experian will help, and various other people help. But the bottom line there is, while you're doing that, your identity is still stolen, and you never know where that's gone. So although you might put it right and have a lot of help putting it right, you are still in the position where you've lost something, which is irreplaceable because it's you.
Yeah, and there's the type of crimes, so not identity theft, but where they hack into your system and take all your passwords, they change all your passwords and lock you out. Now, if that happened to me, I read an article about it. It had happened to somebody recently. If that happened to me, that would be the end of my business.
Yeah,
because I wouldn't have 100 days to sort it out. I'd have days to sort it out, and then my clients would start leaving me. So the impact is very deep.
Yeah, and again, the for small businesses, it as you say, it will destroy the business in a matter of days because of cash flow problems. A bigger business will probably have somebody who can come in, mend it, get them up and running, or have a backup system. There is a scam, and again, if there are any small businesses listening, watching, there's a scam regarding telephones where people have an automated telephone system. I don't know if you've got that in your business, but what happens is it gets hacked into by somebody who then uses your number overnight while you're not in the office to dial premium rate numbers.
Right.
So what they do is if you've got 10 lines, they'll use all 10 lines to dial an 0901 or whatever.
A pound a minute or whatever.
At £20 a minute or whatever they set it up.
Right,
and what happens is they get paid straight away by your telephone provider. You will not know about that because they close it all down, cover their tracks. You won't know about that till you get your bill. Or if it's a direct debit and you're a small company, you suddenly find that you're in the red. And by the time you sorted it out, your bank's frozen, you've got all sorts of problems with your creditors, you've got all sorts of problems with your cash flow, and it puts people out of business. Yeah. So again, if people in Surrey are listening to this, speak to the Federation of Small Businesses. We'll put a link on our website. It is on the cybercrime website. They can give advice where to get help and protect yourself.
Okay.
And that happens. I thought it stopped happening. I heard about 2 cases just the other week.
Oh, right. Interesting. Now,
so it's still going on.
So I suspect that the vast majority of the remedy to these issues is going to be around education and how we get that information out to the community. But what are the police doing to actually catch these scumbags?
Right, it's interesting. I know. I'm just looking at the on my screen about my neighbour's daughter, 11 years old.
We'll read that out in a minute. We'll put that up on the screen for everybody to see. Yeah.
Right. Okay. The way it works, and I don't want to overcomplicate it, but unlike normal crime, where a crime is alleged normal, if you've had a burglar or your car's been broken into, the local cop comes down, takes details, it's investigated locally. With cybercrime, because the victims can be all over the country, all over the world, etc., etc. Yeah. So if you try to have Detective Constable blogs from Surrey Police trying to investigate those, they would never be able to do it. So what they've done in terms of cyber crimes, particularly the financial ones, is that they go after the perpetrator. So they look where they follow the trail back to who pressed that button in the first place. So it's a completely different way of investigating things, because that perpetrator could be hundreds of miles away from the victim, but there are hundreds of victims linked to that perpetrator. Right. So there's something, for financial terms, there's something called action fraud. And again, I'm sure you'll have the link on your site. If not, we've got it. Now, action fraud, in simple terms, is like a massive computerized hopper that takes in information, allegations of crime, intelligence, all sorts of information from all over the country, all over the world. And what it does, it sorts it out into what they call actionable intelligence. I know it's a bit of a jargon, but it's basically information you could do something about. You can go around, knock somebody's door down and arrest them. And when we talk about child sex exploitation, that's exactly what needs to be done all the time. Or it can lead to closing down a website. It can close down as a provider or whatever. So it's a completely different way of investigating. It's a burgeoning thing. If you look at the sort of thing that's been happening with indecent images, I was looking at some data yesterday. Just a generation ago, in 1995, the second biggest force in the country dealt with 25 cases, or a case of 25 indecent images online. Last year is 25 million. Yeah, in terms of not just 25 million cases, but 25 million images shared around. So it's a vast amount, international criminality. It is organised crime of the modern age. Yeah. But what are the police doing about it? We have in Surrey we have a couple of units. We've got a cybercrime unit who deal with economic crime, but also the online abuse and sexual exploitation of young people. We're just about to put a big investment into it because we're aware that we've got to increase the capability of dealing with investigations.
But it sounds like a never-ending cycle, Jeff. I mean, you mentioned earlier some of the figures. How do you stay on top of that, even just in Surrey?
It is incredible because it is a generation ago. None of this, your readers, listeners, your viewers may not appreciate. I retired from policing nearly 12 years ago. Now, when I was a police officer, this was almost unheard of.
Yeah.
Almost unheard of. And so what we've got a lot of people in authority in policing. This is a massive amount of new work that's come in. That the predators are, I'll say, ahead of the game because they've got more time. They're willing to spend more time and lose money doing it. And it's upgrading what we've got in terms of knowledge, in terms of detective ability. It's a different sort of detective.
Yes.
The old-fashioned detective, without being rude, is the Sherlock Holmes type detective who goes out and follows the clues and things. These clues are online. They're doing what we are doing. They're sitting there following the clues through the providers, through the banks.
And it must take some specialists really to to sort of forensically go through all this sort of stuff. I mean, this isn't your average copper on the beat that does this kind of work. I suspect you're having to recruit in specialists, right?
Yep, recruit them in. We're actually looking at having cyber specials, the special constables who know what they're doing.
Yeah.
Because the predators online, they put so many, I'll say firewalls because that's what they are, to stop you getting anywhere near them. So it takes a lot of time. And obviously, bear in mind, everything they do in terms of investigation has got to be of evidential quality to put before a court.
Right.
So you've got to prove whatever you do beyond reasonable doubt, and be quite honest in such a way that judges and juries and prosecution defence barristers can understand it.
Yeah.
Because it's new for the courts as well. So it's a different sort of crime. It's a different sort of detective, as well as doing all the old stuff, because all the old stuff's not gone away.
No,
we've got a huge increase of sexual offences, historic and modern. We've got a huge increase in domestic abuse. So there's a lot of juggling going on for Surrey Police and other police forces in terms of resources and what they can put into things.
Right, and a sign of the times, really, if you're thinking about having digital what did you call them? Community support officers.
Well, I'll call them cyber specials, but it's somebody who's willing to give up their time and have obviously due all the clearances and everything that's got to be done. But somebody who's willing to use their expertise to help Surrey Police and other forces to actually start investigating and put these predators on the back foot.
Yeah.
Get out there where they are local, where they are in this country, where we can make massive strides again, go and get them. Internationally, we've actually got the National Crime Agency, and now they've got agents in something like 140 different countries now working together with the local countries, police and law enforcement agencies to try and stop some of these things at source. But it is so easy. I've heard of a scam being run from the central prison in Ghana, in Accra, in Ghana, because their prison system's obviously different, but an international dating scam, which conned one of our residents out of a large amount of money, was being run from the central prison of the capital of Ghana.
It's incredible they give them internet access.
Well, it's a different style of judicial system, but it just shows. And at the end of the day, if you've got a signal and you've got electricity and you've got a laptop, you can run this from anywhere in the world.
Yeah,
and this is what's happening, of course.
Yeah.
Some of the, believe it or not, are being subcontracted by other organised criminals, which puts them one stage further away from the law enforcement people to actually conduct these things in a small village. We know things that are happening in China and India, Pakistan, and South America.
Absolutely astonishing. Now, before we start taking questions from the audience, was there anything else you wanted to cover that we haven't?
Yeah, I just want to. You've got the survey. I think you've got the CyberSafe Surrey talk there. Please. Although originally we designed it so the survey can be done by anybody over the age of 18, and we'd love as many people as possible to do that for us and spread the word. And secondly, our own website that we've got has got a lot of information on there for people in terms of what the latest scams, lots of information, things to watch.
Right.
Anybody can put things on it in terms of the library that's on there, or borrow things from it, or take things from it. So it's open to anybody.
And that's the surreypcc.gov.uk website you're talking about, right?
You can go through that one, or you can go through www.cybersafesurrey.org.
Right.
And you can join it. It takes about 15 seconds. The only personal data it will have is your email address and your name. And if you have a specialism you want to receive information about, so for instance, if you're a teacher or a youth leader and you want to hear about young people, you will only get that if you want it, or you get everything. So if you're a neighbourhood watch coordinator and you want to hear about crimes, all crimes, then you can have everything, or you can just log on every day. Okay. We publish a weekly newsletter. So we're hoping we're satisfying the need of educating people.
Right. And we will, when we embed the video recording of this interview on the Residents Network, I'll make sure I embed those web addresses as well. Now, thanks for a lot for that, Jeff. Quite an eye-opener, really, particularly the scale of the cybercrime just in our county. It's astronomical, really, and I think probably just the tip of the iceberg. Now, let's take some questions from the audience. Now, I'm going to start with Derek's question, and then we'll move to Dan's question. So let me just pin this up here. Just give me a second. Right, so my neighbour's daughter, 11 years old, is being contacted by some good-looking guy on Instagram, trying to find out her whereabouts, trying to meet her to have some fun and help her with money. So I'm having to read the next bit. Okay, so it's obviously clear what this guy wants. What's the best and recommended way to react to get the best educational value for the girl with less possible psychological damage out of it?
Right. A couple of things immediately. First of all, the neighbour's daughter has got to be congratulated in the nicest way that she's actually come forward and said something to mum and dad, or to an adult, because that's the main thing. They shouldn't feel frightened of being in that position. Let's face it, you don't want to get her into trouble because she's only 11 years old and she shouldn't be using it. We worry about that later. Let's deal with the problem. The problem is that she's been groomed, in one way or another, to be taken advantage of. Whether it's Instagram or whatever, it doesn't matter. Most people have got this trust of these networks that things will disappear within a couple of seconds, but they don't. So what we've got here is a crime. It's an online, potentially child sex exploitation. The first thing is Surrey police must be told. They can ring through on 101, speak to somebody in the policing online team who will take a report. They are very good at dealing with young people. Again, it's something that's evolving. They work with youth workers and social workers. So the support side, because this could be potentially quite damaging. So they're very keenly aware that she's a victim in this, and we need to make sure that we look after the victim. The next thing is that as far as the school are concerned, because if it's happening to her, it may be happening to other children at her school. Now, 11 years old, that puts her in year 8. I'm guessing for most of her schools, that's a high school. I'm guessing she's in state-funded education, so that's year 8. Every single high school in the county has had some input from somebody who's working for us in terms of social media awareness and prevention. So every single high school has had something, but every single high school has also got a teacher or a member of staff whose job is particularly safeguarding young people, who should be up to date with the steps that can be taken to, again, help her and help the others, because the odds are that she won't be the only one, because young people have a habit of sharing these things. So I think the police, definitely. School, speak to pastoral care, if they call it that. They may call it safeguarding, officer safeguarding teacher. They can go and have a chat, mum, dad, whoever. But it is about making sure a young person does not feel guilty about allowing this to happen. You can have that discussion later. The first thing, got to put a stop to it. Bear in mind that she's had a picture of a bloke. He could be anybody from anywhere in the world. It could be Justin Bieber, for I don't even know what he looks like. But the serious side of that is it could be anybody who they've just downloaded a picture and stuck it on there. These people are predatory, and they don't give it. So that's not, if that helps. But certainly Surrey Police in the instant.
Okay, now I've got Dan Adams' question here, which I'm trying to put up here, but I'm struggling. Just give me a second. Let's get rid of that one there. Let's try that. No, I'll just read it out. Kraken Traders, thanks you for answering that question so thoroughly, Jeff. So thank you.
Yeah. And if there's, all I'll say, Paul, if there's anything else, he can contact us at the OPCC or Surrey Police at any time.
Right. Wonderful. Now, the next question is from Dan Adams. Dan is in Camberley. Following the recent Facebook dislike button and the Twitter, is it you in this picture scams, are you seeing an increase in online criminals using social media as a vector for cybercrime?
Simple words, absolutely. The sort of thing you talk about, again, I'll re-emphasize, I'm not an expert in all the different applications, but what you've got now is people who are, in a way, it's very similar to what used to happen in, I'll call it the old days, but it's just modernizing the way that people take advantage of the vulnerable. So what you've got there is people just using it. So the sort of scams that you come from there is that they will make friends, they will take out all the information they possibly can from the individual, but also the individual's friends. And we know we all like to be liked. We all like to belong. Yeah, whether we admit it or not, it's always nice to be liked by other people. Young people particularly, yeah, it's human nature. So what happens is on Facebook, you'll get a group of friends who will share. They will share their friends. And then what happens is that somebody who's not a member will inveigle their way into it, and suddenly they've got a bunch of friends who they've got all the information from. Very similar to your call, what happens then is they'll individualize them and try and predate on them as an individual if they can't. But in the meantime, they're scooping up all sorts of data, not just about the individual, but about the individual's family. And let's face it, if somebody gives away their address, yeah, or you on Google Earth, you can look where it is, you can do Google Street View, you can have a look at the front of the house. There's all sorts of methods these people are very good at doing this. Their profession, when all said and done, is to predate on people. So the simple answer is absolutely. There are steps people can make. And one of the things when I do my public meetings, I have, you remember the keep calm and carry on type posters? Yeah. For me, it's keep calm and ask twice or check twice. Because don't take things at face value. If you look at it again, you might say there's something strange there. And don't be afraid to do that. Don't be so eager to press send. Think about it. If necessary, if you're a young person particularly, tell somebody. And I know we don't like to share our secrets, but let's say more and more young people are moving away from Facebook anyway, because Facebook is what your gran or mum might look at because she wants to be your friend. But the reality is it's back to tell somebody, talk to somebody, explain to somebody, and don't be afraid to do it.
But using the case that Kraken put up there earlier, the social network was Instagram. A lot of young people are using Instagram now. And he said that it was a young, good-looking guy. The chances are it's probably not a young-looking guy at all. It's probably a fat, ugly adult, pretending to be a young, good-looking guy. Because at the end of the day, you can pull any images you like off the internet and create a fake account, right?
Absolutely. And if I just go back to the online dating scams that we've heard, and it is generally speaking a female victim. She's generally retired or bereaved, recently bereaved or widowed. And what happens is she will get a picture of a good-looking guy who's probably 10, 15 years younger than she is. And he's right, it could be anybody. And it's usually a case of, hi, I'm Jeff so-and-so, I'm in the US Army, I'm out in Iraq or whatever the case be. I've got a lot of money to come back to the country. I'm building out. I just need a bit of money to help. And once they've got these people in, it's the old-fashioned con artists, but it's big money. And the damage they do to individuals is horrendous sometimes.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, we're going to wrap this up now. If there's anybody that has any other questions, you need to ask them now. But if not, thank you, Jeff, so much for taking part in this live broadcast. Really do appreciate it. We've had some really good engagement from the audience, and we'll make this recording available afterwards. And if anybody wants to make contact with Jeff or Kevin, the Police Crime Commissioner, just tweet at Surrey PCC, and I'm sure they'll be happy to answer any questions, or go to the Surrey Police and Crime Commissioner website. Marie put that up there earlier. Let me just get that. And that's www.surrey-pcc.gov.uk. Jeff Harris, thank you so much. And no doubt we'll do one of these again sometime in the future.
Yeah, Paul, if I could just make one last plea to anybody, and this really is as strong as for anybody who's listening, watching, anybody who's going to be talking about it, even if they want, you said about big fat ugly bloke, and I'm not sure about who that is, but the serious side is, please talk about it. Please tell people. Please say, particularly the elderly, particularly more vulnerable, particularly people who may have special needs. They're incredibly vulnerable to these sort of predators. Yeah. And the more we talk about it, the more we will share our understanding, particularly young people talking to the older age group. Mm-hmm. Don't be afraid to say, I've been made a fool of, because by doing that, you will share that experience and prevent somebody else being involved. And if in doubt, yes, you can contact the police, you can contact us, or go on the website, and there's a whole host of things that you can do on the website to find the right source of information for you.
Jeff Harris, thank you very much.
Paul, thank you.